Welcome to the Survivor's Voice, where resilience meets hope. I'm your host, Angie Sedore. I'm sitting here with our producer and editor, Christina Elder.
Thank you so much, Angie. It's definitely a different experience being on this side of the room.
Yes.
But I am really grateful for the opportunity to talk to our listeners a little bit. I just want to say really quick that this show has really changed me hearing these stories. It's a real reminder of the realities of this world, the horrifics of the world, but also that healing is not just about surviving. Healing is about being heard, being validated, being understood by people.
Yeah. And that's what the Survivor's Voice is all about.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that we've been able to create a space for our guests where they can be heard and validated and understood.
Yes.
I'm actually really excited and very humbled by the feedback we've gotten from our guests actually about how great of an experience they've had.
And we've had such just a variety and a range of guests on our show. I mean, we have gone through trafficking and medical trauma, church trauma, war. I mean, just so many different things. And maybe some of our listeners are thinking about telling their story.
That would be so awesome. If that's the case, I would like our audience to know we would be honored and privileged to be able to be the platform for them if they so chose to tell their story.
Yes.
We also believe that every single story can help someone else.
Yes.
That's our whole purpose here. Our listeners should know that you don't need to be a speaker. You don't even necessarily need to be past your trauma. You just have to show up. So if listening to this is maybe making your heart beat a little faster, maybe that's a sign that you need to contact us, that maybe you can help somebody else with your story.
If you feel led to speak, we're ready to listen. So reach out to us at booking@thesurvivorsvoice.net. Your story matters here because your voice is your power. Special thank you to Bowman Carter for creating the original music for this podcast. You can find Bowman's music by searching for Bowman Carter on Spotify and on YouTube. We've attached his links in our description of today's episode. Please show him love and support. Survival is not just about staying alive. It's about hope, healing, and strength. This is the Survivor's Voice. I'm your host, Angie Sedore. Before we begin, this episode may contain discussions of trauma, abuse, or other sensitive topics. Listener discretion is advised. We don't recommend playing this show with young children present, and we encourage you to prioritize your well-being. Today on The Survivor's Voice,
bringing me into a world that was filled with much violence. So there was a lot of public shame, and that was the first time I realized that no one is going to listen.
Welcome to the Survivor's Voice. I'm your host, Angie Sedore, and we are so grateful that you are listening, that you are watching. Today we are here with Paris, and I'm looking forward to hearing about her story. It's actually going to be a two-part, so we're looking forward to the second part next week. But today she's going to share some things with us. I'm honored to have her on the show today. So Paris, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So before we dive into your story, I just want you to share with our listeners, who are you? What do you do?
I am Paris. I am first and foremost a single homeschooling mom to 6 beautiful children.
Wow.
They are ages 5 to 14, and it's amazing just raising them and educating them. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And are you, do you work? What do you do during the day?
Yes.
Homeschool your
Yes,
kids,
I
which is a
work.
lot.
I'm an office and marketing manager for a local nonprofit.
And you're also a chaplain.
Yes, I am a chaplain at the juvenile detention. That is probably one of my favorite days of the week to be able to go and administer to the children there. They are 12 to 18 and hurting and come from very broken families. And just to be able to have the opportunity to tell them about Christ just fills my heart because they ask the real and the difficult questions. And it just causes us to, as chaplains, have to really wrestle internally, but also have the opportunity to weep with them because, like I said, a lot of them are hurting.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you're also a published author?
I am. I have co-authored a book with several other women with, it's a group of women that it's called the Empowered Women's Path. And it's a group of 21 stories of women that have suffered or gone through a lot of difficulties in their life and how they have come out of that.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I'm also working on my poetry anthology. So, yes,
It's a lot to you.
yes.
I love that. Well, let's dive in to your story.
I was born to my mother, who was 21 years old. I was the first child that was brought into the world. She had 4 abortions prior to me. And part of that was because I am a product of rape. And so the man that did rape her was with her for 7 years because she's very, very abused in that relationship, and it was very difficult for her to escape. So, one, it's nice to know that I was chosen in some senses, but in another, bringing me into a world that was filled with much violence, I think was difficult, even though I don't remember a lot of it. Then my sister was born a year after I was, and a lot of my earliest childhood memories were of being extremely neglected and watching a lot of violence happen in my life. And in the aspect of neglect, not being fed. If I was fed, it was juice in a bottle until I was 5 years old. I wasn't able to go to school because I was not potty trained yet. I wasn't eating food yet. And that caused me to be malnourished and what I remember, a lot of cavities on my teeth because I slept with bottles for soothing, and it was very difficult in that time of my life because I didn't have words for it. I didn't get out of my house much. I just remember a lot of violence happening between my biological father and my mom.
Were the previous abortions also from rape?
I believe so. I don't know. I've tried to ask my mother, but she doesn't remember a lot. So.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you were born.
Yeah, yes,
Wow.
me too. I'm very thankful. My mother ran away from my biological father when I was 5 years old, and my sister was 4 in the middle of the night, and she ran away with us.
Okay.
And I just had my blanket and my stuffed animal, and my sister had her blanket and the clothes on our backs, and my mother ran away from him in the middle of the night, and I didn't have to see him for 2 years until court ordered therapy was required. It was very difficult for my mom, and as a child, it was difficult for me because of how the dynamic was. I did want to be near my father at the time, but he at least 50% of the time didn't actually come to the therapy sessions. So often left me feeling like, am I even worth fighting for? Am I even worth wanting to be around? And often he would leave a gift on my chair that I'd come into. And to this day, it's difficult for me to receive gifts if it doesn't coincide with the relationship. And so it's very difficult. And so we ran away. My mother ended up marrying my stepdad at the time. And that is when a lot of the physical abuse towards my sister and I started happening. And then when I was 8 years old, starting to go through puberty, then sexual abuse started happening. And that was very difficult because I was confused and I wanted the closeness of a father. And so the nature of the sexual abuse wasn't ever violent. And I thought as an adult, I had so much shame surrounding it because it felt like I wanted to go there. I wanted to have that closeness. And that's the only time he was kind to me. He was nice to me. He showed me attention. Otherwise, it was a lot of yelling, screaming, punching holes in the walls, being disciplined. And it was very difficult. So, yeah.
So, how long did it last, the abuse in your life?
Until I was 15, I left my parents' home, and then I was put into foster care. CPS was called because my sister disclosed to my mother that she was being sexually abused by my father. I was out of the house at that point for 4 months because I no longer wanted to be there, and I had the opportunity to leave, and so I did. And then 4 months. The opportunity was my mom my mom in part was part of the abuse. And so she was making me do excessive exercising. There are times where I was punished and I had to kneel on dry rice for hours on end. There were times where I had to hold out Bibles in the form of a cross this way and hold it out for hours. And oftentimes they would have us go and walk in public that way, go to the grocery store with them. And so there was a lot of public shame surrounding that. And so there was a time where my mom was going to make me do that. And it was the first time that I said, I do not want to do this anymore. And she said, if you don't, I will call the police. And I said, I'd rather sit in a jail cell than be here. And so the police were called. They ended up coming to my school and asked me if everything was okay. They saw what they saw, and I obviously wasn't arrested. And then 4 months later, my sister disclosed that information about the sexual abuse from our stepfather, and then we were put into foster care after that.
How do you still have a relationship with your mom?
It's rocky. I always try to reach out. We have very different worldviews, so it makes it very difficult.
Is she still with him?
No,
Okay.
she is not still with him.
Is she with someone new?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And so, have you had any contact with this man since then?
The last time was about 8 years ago. Yes, because I have two other siblings, half siblings that are his children with my mother, and so I wanted connection with them because once they were in foster care, we were all in foster care, and then they went back to my parents. I didn't have an opportunity to have a relationship with them, and that was very, very difficult for me because they were like my own children. And so it was very difficult to have that break when I went into foster care.
Yeah. So tell me about foster care because I feel like that's not going to be a good story either.
Yes. So I'm from Los Angeles, so there's a lot of children in the foster care system down there. And my very first social worker, it was very, very difficult because she did not believe me. And that was the first time I realized that no one is going to listen. And that was very difficult because I thought, I'm 15 years old. This woman is supposed to be my advocate, and she wasn't. And she kept saying, you're lying. I've talked to your stepfather. This is a lie. This is a lie. You're just trying to rip your family apart. And there came a point where I said, she asked me if I would tell the judge the truth, the truth. And I said, I will not lie. And she got visibly angry with me, started yelling at me, and I told her I will not meet with her without her supervisor. I called the CPS office and I said I will not meet with the social worker without a supervisor. And so thereafter, my next meeting the next month, I met with her and the supervisor, and I was sitting on this side of the table and she was here and the supervisor was there, and the similar situation happened. And in front of the supervisor, she again visibly got angry with me, stood up, was screaming at me, and on the spot, the supervisor fired her. In one sense, I feel very grateful for that, and I had courage to do that. But in another, my voice was silenced because I felt afraid. I felt like I couldn't tell the truth. I wasn't allowed to tell the truth. And if everyone believed what this social worker said, there was no going to be an opportunity for justice. And that is what ended up happening through our court proceedings. And he got off on 1 year of anger management classes, and then got my brother and sister back. And now stories just hearing from my sister the same things. And so it's very disheartening. And so after that, I continued to be in foster care for 2.5 years, and I had a new social worker every single month. I graduated when I was 17, and in California, they want us to stay until we're 21, and I wanted to go off to college out of county. And they had us do so many things to jump through so many hoops and take all these classes and prove that you're able to live out in the world. And I think I'm an exception in the sense of I knew what I wanted. I can go get my letters of recommendations from my teachers, from my employers. I was very much a self-starter, whereas my sister was not, and she fell waste to the system. She and I were never together in foster care simply because she was a diabetic, and so she had to be in a pre-approved health foster care home, and her experiences were terrible because she was in group homes, but with mothers, home mothers that would tell her, you're only here with me because I'm doing this for the money. And so her experience in foster care, particularly where she was placed, was very difficult. And she went through 7 different schools, and it it was very difficult. And so for me, I called friends and I said, I want to graduate from my original high school. Called every friend, like, will your parents be my foster parents, and will you get approved? And but I realize now, I don't know what was in me, but I was trying to survive and knew the best way I knew how. Whereas most children turn to drugs and alcohol and prostituting themselves so that they can get the things that they need. And that's really hard to know. And I would always talk to my sister, and this is what the things that she was participating in, and I would try to encourage her, like, you have a different choice, you can make different choices, but the system really cultivates that sort of dependency, and trying to just work that out somehow. I found friends, parents that were willing to take me in. And so there ended up being one of my good friends from high school, and her mom was a single mom, and she was willing to go through all the training and everything that would need to be, I guess, certified to become a foster parent. And I stayed with her until I moved out.
Wow.
So,
Where's your
yes.
sister now?
My sister passed away when I was 22 years old, and she was 21 from diabetic coma. And part of that is because of the nature of her going from house to house to house, and her not getting the care that she needed through the medical system, and she became very anorexic. And then, and when
Is she insulin dependent?
yes, and when she became literal skin on bones, then the medical intervention happened. But then they had her start eating, and her body was completely rejecting any food. And then she had passed away. And so it's very sad for me, because for her and I responded very differently, even though we were literally 1 year and 10 days apart in age, and we had very similar upbringings and very similar abuse. We responded to it in vastly different ways. And for her, it was very suicidal, turned to drinking, sex, and I'm sure drugs, and becoming anorexic, and because she felt like everyone hated her and she just wanted to die. And so just to see that slow decline was difficult. And at the time, I was pregnant with my third child, but realizing she felt like I betrayed her for leaving her. And so it was difficult, because I did get married at 19, and I did start having children right away. And so it was a difficult relationship. It is still hard. Part of it's because I blamed myself and felt an immense amount of guilt. We didn't have a great relationship ever in our childhood or adulthood. And so that was difficult. And then just realizing like the impact of death. I haven't taken it seriously until the last several years, and how that does affect you. There's times where I'm like, I wish my children had an auntie in their life, and they don't. And I had a sister, and hearing friends saying, like, I'm going out to lunch with my sister, get to catch up, even if they're in close proximity or not, and to realize, like, I had a sister, and to not be able to experience that in adulthood is sad.
How has what you've been through impacted how you are as a mom?
So I would say that's a twofold answer. So the first half of my motherhood was lived very in an immense amount of anger and hypervigilance. It wasn't until 5 years ago that I was willing to take my children grocery shopping with me, because I felt very fearful, in the sense of, I am one person, I have 6 children, and if anyone takes my children or one child randomly, I just lived with that kind of lens in my life. And I didn't realize that people didn't live that way. I would always go through scenarios in my mind of, if we go to this person's house, what if this person does this to one of my children, knowing that statistically it's not going to be random people off the street that are going to take my children or hurt my children. It's going to be people that we know, people that we trust, family members, friends. And so how it impacted my parenting specifically is educating my children of what it looks like to have agency over their own bodies when they can say no, who are allowed to see your private areas or not allowed, or touch your private area, and to be able to explain to them, we don't play behind closed doors. We go camping with friends. We don't go into people's RVs. Even if they want to show you around, we always decline and say, no, thank you, we can play out here. Same thing in their tents. And so just I don't want to instill fear in them, because that's the life I've lived, but I do want them to be educated and aware that this is our body and we're allowed to say no. And if people do ask questions about your body, it's important that you tell a trusted adult. And that's just casual conversation. Though I homeschool, we don't have like a curriculum that I'm educating them on this. Yeah. It's just been brought up in natural conversations as we talk about our bodies and how we're growing and how we're changing, and how we take care of our bodies. And that is just another way we take care of them. Yes. As far as the anger aspect, I think not being able to process my childhood and the type of person how I functioned was, this happened in my past and I'm not going to let my past define me. And so I'm going to pretend like it doesn't exist. And that has been a great detriment to me as far as a relationship to my children, at the time my husband, family, friends, because I held in so much pain and an outward emotion was anger. And oftentimes when people are angry, that's not the core emotion that they have. It's fear and it's shame. And I, in the last 5 years, have done a lot of work surrounding that and being educated and gaining the tools that I need to heal through that. But the first 10 years of my motherhood was filled with a lot of anger and fear and things that I didn't realize that was a result of my abuse, like hoarding food when I would go grocery shopping for my children. And yes, and I just didn't put two and two together. There were little things like that I've come to realize that have greatly impacted me and how I raised, especially my older children. And so that's been a process.
My guess is that nobody had those types of conversations with you when you were growing up about your body.
That is correct. I was 8 years old when my parents gave me a very graphic and I would say pornographic cartoon book about how babies are made and how my body is growing with body hair and development and whatnot. And that is the extent I knew at 8 years old.
How did that make you feel when you were looking at that?
It actually awakened in me the feelings of sexuality, and because that was already there, that was already present, that just awakened that to even more. Yes. And I didn't know what to do with it because I'm a child, but just realizing that my body is already familiar with these types of images and desires, really. And it wasn't until I was 10 years old in what is required in 5th grade, sex education class, where then on the videos, that was clearly stated, people are not to be touching your bodies, and this is what this looks like if it happens, and this is what you need to do when it does or if it does. And that's when I realized that what my stepdad was doing was not okay and not appropriate. Yeah. And so I stopped participating in going to him in that way. And
how did he respond to that?
He went to my sister. And so, which again is very tragic and sad. And that's part of the guilt that I felt. Again, I didn't know that as a 10-year-old. But later, as a late teenager, early 20s, I realized when my sister was explaining to me, when you left, this is what happened. When you stopped doing this is what happened. And I felt so much guilt and shame because I felt the responsibility that I was supposed to protect her. And at the time, I was just trying to survive and trying to get out and protect myself. And so that was very difficult. There were some of my parents' friends, and they would ask, or my sister and I would tell, and a couple of friends, and they approached my parents and they acted as if nothing was happening. And then we were no longer able to go to those friends' house. Yeah. And so it was very...
So again, then it made you not want to say anything.
It made me not want to say anything, that my voice is silenced. As a 14, 15, 16-year-old, going through court, it made me feel like no one's going to listen. Not even my social worker would listen and change anything. And so why do I even speak up to begin with?
Yeah.
So
first thing out of your mouth should be, I believe you.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Just say, I believe you, because that is it changes everything.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
I'm sorry that nobody believed you.
Yes.
So what would you say to anybody that is listening right now that has either been through what you've been through and they're still stuck in it, or maybe they're currently being abused, or maybe they're stuck in the foster care system? Like, what kind of hope could you offer them that they could know if she got through it? And I mean, not only did you get through it, like, you're an overcomer. Like, you've gone to the next level. Help them out with that.
Yes, I would say that it makes it difficult when you feel like you're alone. And there are many people that are going to make us feel like we're alone. Like I said, people may not listen. People may not believe you. And yet there are people that do. There are resources in the community. It just takes one person to say, like you said, I believe you.
Yeah.
And also I believe in you, because it's not only being given the opportunity to tell our story, be given the opportunity to work through and past our story so that we can turn around and help others and encourage others and bring an awareness that says, I'm an overcomer. I have survived this, and you can as well.
Absolutely. Is there anywhere that they can get help?
Yes. They can call Angie up over here. Safe Harbor, Safe Passages.
Yeah.
Oftentimes the police station and the juvenile detention. When my mother told me that day that I'm going to call the police, for me, I knew that I would be safer in this jail cell and have 3 meals a day and clothes and everything that I needed more than what she was going to not offer me.
Yeah.
And so there are people to help. And even if it feels scary, or even if it feels odd to have to sleep in a jail cell at night, to know that people care.
But it's a step.
It's a step. It's one step, and it takes just one step in front of the other.
Yes.
And there are people that care and that want to help.
Absolutely. What is your mom doing these days?
She lives in Los Angeles.
Oh, she does?
Yes.
Okay. Living the same life?
Living the same life.
Okay. All right. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your story. I had to compose myself because that was probably because I love you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
But you are, you're a testimony that there is nothing that life can throw at us that we can't get through and be better because of it. But it's a choice.
It's a choice, and we need people.
We need people.
People.
We need community.
We need community.
Yeah.
For me, it's also faith,
and
to not have these infrastructures to help us. Like, we cannot do it alone.
No.
But it is a choice to say, I need help.
Yes.
Will you help me? And to have a voice. We need our voice. I believe it's God-given. We need to speak the truth and walk in truth. And part of that is sharing our story so that we can be set free, not only internally, but if we are trapped in these situations, we need to say something.
Absolutely. So what's the likelihood of somebody that has grown up in an abusive environment, what's the likelihood of them continuing in that abuse later on in life?
So as I've learned through counseling and therapy and these things, I've learned that it's a 300% upward risk of someone coming from abuse into abuse. And that actually is part of my story.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that next week. Safe Harbor is dedicated to helping survivors of trauma find healing and restoration through support, resources, and community. They provide hope for those affected by human trafficking. Visit safeharborforfreedom.com to learn more or support their mission today. Thank you so much, Safe Harbor, for supporting the survivor's voice. Next week on The Survivor's Voice,
angry, throwing things, punching holes in the wall, stay out of his way. I need to figure out and go get help. I felt very afraid.
Thank you for listening to this story on The Survivor's Voice. I'm your host, Angie Sedore, reminding you that every survivor's story matters. A heartfelt thank you to our incredible listeners for your support and to the survivor community for your courage and resilience. You are the heart of this show. Special thanks to our producer and editor, Christina Elder, to Bowman Carter for our beautiful song, and to Dan Wise with North Idaho Podcast Productions for bringing these powerful stories to life. Your dedication, talent, and most importantly, your hearts make the Survivor's Voice possible.